What's good, YouTube? It is DefCon TCG back with another video today from my local league, and I'm going to be playing a Charizard EX deck. I really just wanted an excuse to play Dawn in a deck, and this kind of seemed like the best deck to play it in. Maybe this and Dragapult are the two that I was eyeing up, but here's my build. It's pretty much just Jackson's build, but, with a couple modifications for the newer set. I put the Psyduck in here because there's a couple Dragapults that are local, but then I really thought about it. It was pretty silly to run the Psyduck with the Ghosts, but I kind of was just throwing cards together in a list for a Charizard deck before the tournament because I really didn't know what to play. I usually play Guardy every week, and I just kind of wanted to play something different to locals, so this seemed kind of fun to play. Probably in the future, I would just cut the Psyduck for like another consistency card somewhere, maybe a second Nest Ball or like a fourth Candy or maybe another supporter card, who knows, but this was my run for the event. This deck is pretty fun, and it's pretty easy if you want just a chill deck to play the locals.
I can't kill the average. It's just the most bricky hand. Yeah, you said first.
Alright, now going into the first turn, I hit a Rockets deck that's pretty interesting. My opponent's playing the Rockets Persian with Mewtwo. It's kind of like a Rockets box deck, and I'm not really sure what to expect because I didn't know what the Rockets Persian did until I read it during this game. And it basically says you look at the top 10 cards of your opponent's deck, and then you pick a Pokemon you find there and use that attack as its attack, which can be pretty scary because my opponent actually does have a lot of tools in their deck to combat my Charizard. Mainly this one prize Mimikyu that can attack for 1 energy, being the Rockets energy, and it can just basically do whatever my Charizard does damage-wise, which is pretty scary because later in the game, if let's say my Charizard's taking I think 4 prizes, I'm doing 300 damage on my Charizard, then this little Mimikyu gets to also do 300 damage back, and then I'm pretty sure the Crobat puts damage counters on my opponent's Pokemon however they like, so that could kind of be a problem later if my opponent wants to take a weird multi-prize turn with a bunch of 1-prize Pokemon. So obviously Charizard is a deck that kind of struggles with those 1-prizer decks because it doesn't trade very well into them, but it's going to be an interesting one for sure. So I get a pretty good setup here. I get my Tatsugiri into play, and I'm going to retreat into it because I'm pretty sure my hand is pretty dead. So I'm able to, jet Tatsugiri out of the active and just promote Duskull to kind of sack it. And then it's going to go back into my opponent's turn, and they get to start doing all the Rocket shenanigans. Secret Box lets you kind of do whatever you want, so.
One under a prize.
I'm going to put 2 damage counters on the that's great. Then don't like it. I got 1, that's good enough. I just pass.
Jentatsu, trash customer. Thanks.
He's got ears. Okay, it's just Spider-Man. Oh boy.
What the hell, yeah.
I talked about it, starts moving. Look at it.
Play the Arven.
Surviving the way there.
That is not what I thought that was going to be.
Starting your box
I have a pretty simple yet effective turn here. I just toss to the active, get the Arven to evolve into Pidgeot and Charmeleon. And my opponent's turn is also pretty quick. I think they just attach an energy to Meowth and basically pass, which I would maybe have liked to see the attachment to the Crobat to knock out my Tatsugiri and then kind of promote a 1-prizer and then save the energy for the following turn where the Mimikyu can attack into my Charizard for 180 damage. I think that would have been a pretty good swing for my opponent to be able to get a bunch of damage on Charizard for free, but now that they're kind of just leaving me to kind of do whatever I want on my turn, it's really hard to beat Charizard once they've established this nasty board of double zard.
All this cheese in my hand and no crackers. All this cheese and no crackers.
I have a pretty quick turn here as well. I kind of just established my board more going into the following turn. I use that Ultra Ball to grab my Charizard here to be able to get up my big attacker. And I think I'm just going to use the quick search here in order to bring up my opponent's Pidgeot, or bring my opponent's Mewtwo into the active with my Pidgeot. But I'm going to try to fish for the boss first with the Tatsugiri. So that way, if I whiff off of the Tatsugiri, I can just grab it off of the Pidgeot. But I do end up getting the Arven off of that, and I think I kind of just thought I have more value knocking out the Mewtwo this turn, because there's that energy on the Crobat. Maybe if my opponent has something to like attach, like a Crispin plus an energy attachment, that could be kind of bad. So I don't want my Charizard to have any fear of getting knocked out, so I'm just going to bring up that Mewtwo here and KO it. I also did prize my second copy of Charizard EX this game, so I knew that my opponent couldn't flip over a Charizard with the Persian attack, so I wasn't scared of that at all. What happens on this following turn is pretty much what I had said before, is that this Mimikyu is going to get a whole bunch of damage onto my Charizard, because now that I've taken a couple of prize cards, this Charizard is going to be met with its own Burning Darkness attack, and then I think on this following turn, I'm kind of just going to set up more of a board. So I Ultra Ball here, and I'm looking for that Charmeleon, I believe. Yeah, because I just kind of want to be able to evolve into a Charizard next turn, more than likely when this Charizard dies on the following turn. So have that bad boy ready, and then I can kind of support it with some Ghost to kind of win the game. So you see I grab the Ghost off the Dawn here, so I can go and naturally evolve one of them. And then if I can, next turn I can use the Rare Candy for the Pidgeot to evolve into Dusknoir, and then probably win the game off of that play. Alright, and then to round out my turn here, my Charizard is going to attack in a Mimikyu, and I believe I go down to 3 prize cards here. And my opponent's going to be looking to disrupt my hand for sure, so I'm expecting like something like an Iono, or if they're staying within the theme, my opponent does have access to Team Rocket's Archer, which is basically Roxanne, but you draw one less card and your opponent draws one more card. Roxanne was a little bit overtuned, I will admit, very broken card, but I'm going to just draw 3 cards. Unfortunately, for me, my Ghost that was in my hand before, my big Dusknoir, is going to be gone, so it's going to be a little bit harder to clear out the game. Thankfully, I do have this Pidgeot in my active spot to kind of just do whatever I want next turn, and so I think my play here is actually pretty cool. So I'm going to Arven here, thin out this Max Belt and get that Super Rod. The Super Rod's going to put back that Charizard and the Fire Energy because, like I said before, I prize my second copy of Charizard EX, so I pretty much just want to establish a checkmate on this following turn. So because my Charizard right here on the bench is my last one, I do want to protect it so that it's able to just threaten a knockout on anything my opponent wants to put into play. So I'm actually going to do is pretty cool here is I'm going to use my Pidgeot to use a Blustery Wind to knock out this active Mimikyu. And then it's also going to knock out this Rocket Stadium in play. I attach Energy to Tatsugiri just in case here my opponent does knock out my Pidgeot. I'll have an opportunity to grab a potential boss's order off of my Tatsugiri, and then I can retreat it and win the game with my Charizard EX in play. I was pretty confident my opponent wasn't able to knock out my Pidgeot this turn because, like I said, my last Charizard was prized. So even if I took it off the prize card there, it'd be pretty unlikely my opponent like archers me again and then hits it off of the Persian for game. I just kind of show my opponent the boss's order for game after they play the supporter, and it's pretty much just going to scoop up the game here. There's not really much my opponent can do after that.
Always draw the nuts into Also, I bought these sleeves and I won the league challenge, so I think your Ivory theory is correct.
Ivory's the goats, dude.
Dude, they actually are though. I just really like how they look. They're just very clean. Yeah, I really did just start that.
We both kind of break. Started the Frilly Vanilli. Oh, he's like that. We both break, but you unbreak
Just in case.
They go fan mode on Vitality bands. That's how it is. I'm actually playing Lango.
Alright, my opponent definitely does not get the hottest start here with the Frillish Pass, but I mean, at least the upside for them is that they can slow me down a little bit with that Frillish in play, but my opening hand is pretty solid going into this first turn. I'm able to get that Buddy-Buddy Poffin to establish a Pidgeot and a Pidgeotto, because I believe I'd either have Evo TM or Arven in my hand already. So yeah, I'm able to use that Buddy-Buddy Poffin to grab the Pidgey, and then I was like oh wait, I cannot grab this Charmander because it has 80 HP, which is a little goof for me. So I think I just grab a Ghost here. But I do also have a Duskull in hand, so it just allows me to thin my deck for another card. Obviously, I like to have another Charmander there, but I mean, I'm always evolving in a Charmeleon plus Pidgeotto. So I looked at my deck, and I actually think I prized my other copy of Duskull, so I don't actually even think I get anything. I'm thinking about getting the second Pidgey just in case. I am playing against Jellyguardy, so they're going to want to target down your Pidgeot. So setting up 2 isn't even always that bad, but I decided to forego it. But I'm going to go back into my deck because I just have Ghost. I actually just have raw TM Evo Fire Energy because I'm crazy like that. And yeah, unfortunately for me, I do have that Charmeleon in hand, so if I was able to lead the 80 HP Charmeleon, I could have got double Charmeleon into play next turn. Or I could have got Charizard plus Charmeleon plus Pidgeot into play next turn, hopefully, because I do have the copies of Lillie's Determination. Yeah, pretty much like all you could ask for as a Charizard player. Pretty quick turn for my opponent here. They are just going to use that Lillie's Determination, and I think they just draw a bunch of energy discard outlets plus a Ralt, so we're not too bad. They're able to just kind of get a bunch of energy into the discard pile while also getting that item lock established and getting a Frillish into play, which is very, very good for them. Not establishing a Ralt turn 1 is obviously pretty bad, but it's going to keep him back into this game. But unfortunately for my opponent, my Lillie's is absolutely nuts here.
This shit is too easy. Yeah. The zard should be easy.
Alright, so I got a pretty simple yet effective turn here. I'm able to just kind of evolve into Charizard, Pidgeot, take the knockout into this Frillish, and Anthony actually has a pretty insane clapback turn here, so their board develops pretty nasty, into a pretty nasty board. So they're actually able to get this Nest Ball for the Fezandipiti off of the Iono, and look at these 3 cards that my boy draws off this Fezandipiti. Absolutely nuts. So I'm going to get a couple good shuffles in, couple good riffles, you know, got to make sure the magic's working. Draws 3 cards, a bunch of energy in the discard pile from earlier. And his 3 cards are going to be Secret Box Rare Candy, which is pretty nuts. It's going to be able to get him into that Gardevoir EX to be able to make a significant play here. And it looks like the Secret Box, he's just thinking about it. He has to discard double Night Stretcher, which is pretty bad. He's going to pretty much turn off this item lock for the rest of the game. So Anthony's pretty much accepting here that he's going to be prize racing me this entire time. So he's thinking, he's like, oh, what do I grab here? He's going to go for Artazon, Nest Ball, Team Evo, and Iono. So he's going to use an Artazon to grab Ralts, and then a Mega Diancie off of the Nest Ball. It's the only thing on his board that can live a hit off of my Charizard. And it's also going to set up a pretty nice 2-hit KO here. He's able to do 240 with the Diancie here, and then move 30 from the Diancie to the or to the regular Charizard, not a Mega Charizard. He's going to do 270 total, so my opponent's able to establish another Monkey Dory next turn. He's actually going to be able to just ping this thing for knockout. But I actually have the most insane turn here where I just go Dusknoir kill the Ralts and then Boss kill the Gardevoir. So I would have definitely liked to see my opponent attach some more energy to this Diancie here because he was definitely able to attach just 2 more. He would have had the knockout on this Charizard and could have established some more Raltses. He would have definitely had to high roll a little bit on the following turn to get another Gardevoir into play, but when you play against a Charizard, you kind of have to high roll a little bit.
Muscle.
And then you've got to do like a cleansing of that deck or something.
Grab this off Artazon.
I'm gonna kind of flush.
Oh my god, I do Fezandipiti.
Well, yeah, that's right.
I don't know.
I see them up there. If you want me to stop, just let me know.
Yeah, because I kind of shit, that's still 6,
Even though I don't own any.
Yeah, sure. Super Rod. Those 3 then?
doing Gadget Show. It's 30 damage for each Pokemon. Another rolls. Wow. To all my Pokemon.
You also want to the best card. And it's not going to be a Zelda.
That is. Oh no. Does that change literally anything? Not really. Will Monkey tend to... Alright. Yeah. So the melee has... 60. Confused.
Yeah. Because that's why this is switched also. I got one blue up here.
Oh, not here.
You only got one. You monkey 30 on.
You know my last 2 prizes last game too. That's crazy. My bad.
Alright, and go to my opponent's first turn. They get that ideal turn 1 start of that turn 1 Arven. They get the Buddy Poffin plus the Evo TM. And I think from here, they're just going to try to establish their Grimmsnarl board. And I know this is going to be a pretty rough one off the bat, just because, well, one, this matchup's already not very good for Charizard to begin with. And by attaching my Mist Energy turn 1 to the Shaymin, then I now don't have an energy to put onto my Pidgeot to prevent the Devo TM. So a late game Devo TM is probably just going to mess me up pretty bad here. But I'm just going to hope that on my following turn I'm able to find a pretty good top deck here. I have Arven to kind of get the Evo TM play off and play from a turn behind, which may be fine if I'm able to establish a Pidgeot pretty quickly. But Grimmsnarl, nonetheless, is a pretty tough matchup, especially because their spread damage is going to be really nasty. And more than likely, the Shaymin is going to end up getting sacked here because they're going to just Grimmsnarl into it, take the knockout, and now I don't have any protection on my bench. And using a Super Rod on just Shaymin is pretty bad. Now I'm looking through my deck here, and I'm going to grab the Buddy Poffin plus the Evo TM. And I unfortunately prized my Pidgeotto this game, so I'm just going to evolve my Duskull into a Dusclops. Unfortunately, I looked at my deck 1 or 2 more times just to make sure that my Pidgeotto is not prized, and that's going to put me pretty far behind here, as not having a Pidgeot is really, really bad, especially with the mediocre starter that I have. I'm going to talk through the rest of this game, because unfortunately, this game actually does get cut off by my camera, because my camera dies, which... L plus Bozo on me. I bring up my extra battery too, so I could have just replaced the battery, but I wasn't really thinking about it in between games. So now I know, after round 2 to change the battery out, charge the other one, and then for the next 2 rounds, use 1 battery, and then swap out for the battery for the final round. So, we're getting the kinks out as we go, so thank you guys for bearing with me here. And like I said, my Shaymin's going to get knocked out here, which is going to prevent my Pokemon from getting hit from that 30 on the bench damage, which is pretty annoying. But thankfully on this next turn, I'm able to establish slightly more of a board. Unfortunately, my opponent benches this Psyduck, so unless my cards off of this Fezandipiti are absolutely incredible, it's going to be pretty tough for me to knock out this guy. It's going to have to be like Fezandipiti into Klefki, Jet Energy, plus something, or like Rare Candy Pidgeot, which unfortunately I don't get here. I do get the Pidgeot, but I don't get a Rare Candy out, which this is a slight misplay by me as well here. I think on this turn, I should have benched the other Pidgey that's in my hand, because now on this following turn, my opponent just has the juice to be able to knock out my Pidgey on the bench, and now I'm not even threatening the Pidgeot on the following turn. Plus, I had the extra bench space down, so definitely a slight miscalculation from me here, especially because I think it definitely would have made a difference later in the game, because I just kind of whiff on Pidgeot almost this entire game, but if we go down a little bit here, I do get a pretty sick turn. So, like, my opponent's going to smack into me, kill my Pidgey. And then at this following turn, I get a pretty sick play of, like, I bench Klefki, I jet it to the active, and then I'm able to use the Dusknoir to pop the active Grimmsnarl, and then use that boss's order you can see in my hand to bring up the other Grimmsnarl, attach the max belt, and then kill it, taking 4 prizes. Unfortunately for me, my opponent already has taken a bunch of prizes and knocked out my Shaymin and knocked out my Pidgey, so, and then I'm giving them another prize with the Dusknoir, so then they just need to knock out my Charizard and my benched Pidgey for game, which is pretty easy with all the damage counters built up in the Monkey Dory. Unfortunately for me, I prized 2 Fire Energy this game, so if I was able to maybe evolve this bench Charmeleon into a Charizard, which I believe I have Charizard and a Rare Candy in my hand after my Fezandipiti, then I would have been able to attack with the fresh Charizard. My opponent takes a prize card into my Pidgey, and then my Charizard knocks out the following turn, and I can win the game. But I think just with the mediocre start, and then one, this matchup's already pretty bad, so you have to draw pretty well. So with that start, plus the 2 Fire Energy prize, I'm going to lose this game. Pretty close game, I would say. Otherwise, I think maybe if I bench that other Pidgey and able to establish a Pidgeot this turn, and I'm able to go like Iono plus Counter Catcher instead of using the boss's order and getting rid of my opponent's big hand, maybe there's a better chance of me winning this game. So, you know, those little small misplays will definitely add up. I think really definitely the big one is just the not benching the Pidgey, and then prizing the Pidgeotto is pretty bad here as well, because I would have gotten the turn 2 Pidgeot, or turn 3 Pidgeot, so that would have definitely helped a lot going into this game. I'm going to super speed through this whole game, because unfortunately for my opponent, it's a pretty much nothing game. I think my friend Amar here was trying to experiment with like a funny Zoroark build, where he was kind of meshing a couple of builds together, but in doing so, in this game, he tells me that he cut Cleffa from his deck to kind of add some of the text that Liam was playing in his deck, but also it's more of a Piper list, so kind of like a weird in-between of their deck. And it definitely punishes him here not having the Cleffa, because if you look at his hand, he kind of would have just been able to like use that boss's order, retreat into Cleffa, draw a couple cards, and I think like after this turn he draws into a bunch of Zoroark. So yeah, I use the Charizard to knock out his Zorua. He Nest Balls, and I think if I'm him, I'd probably just try to grab Fezandipiti here and then draw some cards. But I think he looks through his deck, and maybe it's prize. And I bumped the camera there on accident. Whoops. Yeah, we just see my opponent. Look. Hand's pretty dead. But yeah, this is where like the Cleffa's really good in this deck. Sometimes you just draw awkward hands where you're not able to do anything. And he actually just ends up going for the Yveltal trap onto Pidgeot, which isn't super effective here, as they should be more knowledgeable of like the Charizard list of like, oh, well, I just have like Jet Energy and stuff. So here, just have Jet Boss to kill Zorua, and like the game's like pretty much over from here. He's just gonna scoop it up because he top decks the Zoroark there, and yeah, the game's just pretty much over.
Oh, so that's 20 minutes left.
I will try my best. You're gonna clap me right now. Get within the last.
Alright, so now going to the final round of Swiss, I hit my buddy Chris here, and he's a champ because in this final round, I am now 3-1, and he is 2-2-1. So he actually scoops to me because he cannot get prizing in any way. So he's like, you know, bro, you got it. We can just play it out for fun here. I just want to be on the YouTube. And I was like, all right, bet. I appreciate the scoop. And yeah, we're going to be playing this last game against another Grimmsnarl. So unfortunately for me, my turn is a do nothing pass. And yeah, my boy Christoph over here is going to get a pretty nasty turn 1. The Buddy Poffin plus the Arven and the attach for turn is going to be able to get them pretty much whatever board they want. I think they're end up going to going for the whatever the middle Grimmsnarl is called. There's Impidimp, and then I think it's Morgrim, and then Snorunt's obviously going to evolve into that Frostlass to be able to put that pressure down with all those damage counters. And then I think my following turn is like pretty quick here. I'm just going to use the Rare Candy to evolve into Charizard, get that evolution up, and my goal here is like, okay, well, if I can just swing into this Monkey Dory and kind of keep his Monkey Dories offline, that's like the main pressure that this deck has into me, so that maybe I can just kind of keep up with the prize trade this way. Unfortunately, my opponent is going to get that Grimmsnarl into play next turn, more than likely, right? They didn't use that many cards from their hand, and I'm able to use the Jet Energy for the Tatsugiri here, just be able to grab a supporter for the following turn. I'm eyeing up that Lillie's Determination. I'm going to grab that, and did I support it for turn? I think I did. I think I'm probably using Arven to grab the Rare Candy for the Charizard. So I'm just going to take the knockout here on to the Monkey Dory, and then all the guys are going to take some damage here, unfortunately. So this is going to set me up for the following turn. Alright, I'm going to kind of speed through this last part of the match. And so here we have the Grimmsnarl player going for the spike move to grab that Grimmsnarl, and then kind of set up the Monkey Dory on the bench there with the energy switch, which was pretty nasty. I'm kind of hoping that he's not able to establish double Monkey Dory, but just smacks into me with the Fezandipiti, or smashes into my Charizard, and I get the Fezandipiti into play. And then I Artazon, and I'm looking for another Charmander here to kind of establish, because this Charizard on my bench is going to be able to knock out. And I get the Shaymin down as well to protect that Pidgeotto. Otherwise, my Pidgeotto is going to die here, unfortunately. So I'm really hoping that my opponent is not able to get like the double Monkey Dory, but unfortunately for me, they do. I think I played the Lillie's Determination there, and I end up whiffing onto that Pidgeot, or I play Iono here, and I whiff on a Pidgeot this turn, which is pretty unfortunate, because I think if I'm able to establish Rare Candy Charizard in this turn and knock out my opponent's Grimmsnarl, it's like looking very, very good for me, actually. Because now they're going to have one Grimmsnarl in play, and then on my following turn, I can grab Max Belt and then knock out that last Grimmsnarl. And then as long as my opponent doesn't do like a bunch of funny stuff with damage counters, it's pretty fine. So I have to take my turn here to evolve into the Pidgeot here, which definitely is not good for me. My opponent sets up a really nasty turn here. I believe this is like a secret box for Devo with triple monkey in play, and it's pretty much just going to say that I lose the game. So, again, Grimmsnarl is a really tough matchup for Zard, especially with no Tex in it. If I play Charizard at my local again, hey, man, I might have to throw in that picnic basket, because, bro, why is there so many Grimmsnarls at my locals? But, you know, after playing Guardy for weeks and weeks, I think Guardy can handle the Dark decks a little bit better than Charizard can, funnily enough. But, yeah, I'm just going to get my whole board wiped here with the Devo TM plus the triple monkey, and then I kind of draw and go, all right, let's see if I got anything here. I go Rare Candy, Charizard, or I put Klefki in the axe because I need to protect my Charmander on the bench here, and then I go, I think Boss is up Frost last. My opponent has Boss, and then all the Monkey Pings are going to kill my guys, and that's pretty much going to be local. So I finished with a 3-2 record in practice, a 4-1 record game on the scoreboard. So I think I now have like $20 in store credit because I get third place. So thank you guys for watching. If you guys want to see more gameplay videos, let me know. And then if you guys have any other funny deck suggestions, just let me know in the comment section down below.